There was more lead in John Connolly's wrist than there was in the entire magic bullet CE-399. Which proves that there were multiple gunmen, a key point. At 12:25 on November 22nd, 1963, Carolyn Arnold, who worked in the Texas School Book Depository, sees Lee Harvey Oswald on the first floor near the doorway of the building, which means it would be almost impossible, probably impossible, for him to have done the shooting. Eugene Hal Brading, who was involved in the murder, legally changed his name about a week right before the murder. He was also seen wandering around the Ambassador Hotel right around the time that Bobby Kennedy was murdered in '68. Many of the assassins and the conspirators involved in JFK's murder changed their names legally right before the assassination. Highly suspicious. A rifle was found on the roof of the Texas School Book Depository, which totally contradicts the Warren Commission. There were massive discrepancies when it comes to the evidence of the limo. Windshields were constantly disappearing, just like all the evidence in the case. Emory Roberts forced the Secret Service agent Henry J. Rica to fall back from the rear of the limo, therefore decreasing JFK's security right before the assassination. According to a lot of different information out there, JFK never ordered the bubble top removed or the Secret Service to do anything about it. It's a myth. There were 18 eyewitnesses from Parkland and Bethesda that reported seeing a massive blowout hole in the back of JFK's head, contradicting the Warren Commission and many other accounts. Dr. Malcolm Perry had changed his statements on all these things with the autopsy and everything else up until his death. Highly suspicious. Dr. Humes burned his and Dr. Fink's autopsy notes. JFK's brain was stolen from the National Archives. The military controlled the autopsy, so there's no real chain of evidence that's reliable in the whole case. Photos proving headshots from the front and thus conspiracy were stolen from the National Archives. Gerald Ford elevated the back wound into the neck to make the Warren Commission theory possible. He did a very bad thing. A 6.5 millimeter object was placed into the x-rays in 1968, 5 years after the autopsy. Only Admiral George Berkeley was present at Parkland or Bethesda. He was LBJ's doctor until LBJ retired. Humes and Boswell, these doctors played fast and loose with the truth based on what they saw in the autopsy. A big part of the problem in the case. Humes had a military background and was controlled by Berkeley. Humes later admitted his autopsy report was false. When Dr. Fink was saying too much in the Garrison trial down in New Orleans, Boswell was called in to try to get him to shut up. Knowing everything now about this case is basically unknowable. That is what Harrison Livingstone said a long time ago. Harrison Livingstone and David Lifton were key early researchers of the medical evidence. Penn Jones, Jesse Curry, and Josiah Thompson were also very early critics of the Warren Commission. Fake evidence appeared to appear in the evidence pool many years later, which is very common in this case. Time conflicts and discrepancies prove use of two brains to aid the cover-up of conspiracy. Robert Blakely, who ran the HSCA in the late 70s, co-authored a book blaming this assassination and many others on the mob. Photos of the brain in the autopsy is different than photos of the brain in the archives. There were many inconsistent patterns of evidence in the careers of doctors Boswell, Humes, and Fink in relation to all the autopsies. Homer McMahon's opinion that JFK was hit 6 to 8 times from 3 different sources was ignored. Zapruder may not have actually taken the actual Zapruder film. The Nix film and other photos have been altered. Zapruder could not have filmed the murder because his secretary Stitzman blocked the view of the motorcade. A large silver van is in the Towner photos, but not in the Zapruder film, proving fakery. When I met Dr. Fetzer, he theorized that the van was a radio control center for the murder. Mary Mormon and Jean Hill were not on the grass. They stood in the street when the limo passed. This completely proves the Zapruder film was faked. There are consistent patterns of people coming and going from Zapruder and other photos, proving fakery and manipulation. The head snap of the Z film is most likely evidence of forgery. Many witnesses and Secret Service witnesses said JFK was erect at the moment of the final headshot. The Newsweek edition from November 22nd, 1993, which I own, shows the final headshot to be 30 to 40 feet further down Elm than in the Zapruder film frame 313. The slant of Jesse Curry's book was that Lee Harvey Oswald could have been acquitted. The magic bullet is not missing enough metal. The Mannlicher Caracana was not a high-velocity gun. Lee Harvey Oswald handled boxes in the depository, which means having nitrates on his hands would prove nothing. From my research, Oswald was in the CIA, the ONI, the FBI, the NSA, and probably also a Dallas police informant. He was a highly important intelligence agent. There's a big black hole in the last century of history due to the JFK assassinations. Historians have a fear of the order of the establishment. All historians are biased. They're basically tools of the ruling elite. Which means there's a very big black hole in a major duration of time in U.S. history. There's a big gap in that history, and you can't understand history without understanding the JFK assassination, in my opinion. The media doesn't even have a clue, usually, about anything in this case. Aldous Huxley died the same day JFK did. He was most likely the mastermind between all of the CIA mind control projects at that time. Coincidence? I doubt it. Allen Dulles was a campaign manager for Dewey in '48, which totally goes against the idea that the CIA people don't get involved in politics. Nixon in the Frost interviews refers to the JFK killers in plural, then consciously reverses himself. Dan Rather admitted that he and others blued on the JFK murder in the media. John Connolly and Nellie Connolly, contra to popular belief, did not support the Warren Commission or the Warren Report. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration. It's free to subscribe.